Attention please. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome.
Hey everybody, it is Andy Smith, your host with the most, 34-year veteran of the comic book industry, here with another tutorial. This time, I'm going to be talking about rendering metal, shiny objects, I guess I should say, because there is metal that isn't shiny. And we're going to talk about shiny things. So think like Silver Surfer, characters like that. Yeah, Colossus has metal arms that are kind of shiny and stuff. So I thought I'd pop in, do a quick little tutorial on that. And here we go. So we're going to start with just a ball, a sphere, a ball. Excuse me. Remember, three-dimensional shape. This is not a circle. So let's say the light source is coming from here down to it. Okay. So light source is coming from the upper left, coming down. I'm going to show three different ways. Of course, you can adapt these. Of course, if you look at comic books, you'll see guys that have, their specific way of doing it. This is just kind of how I do it. So let's dive in. So one simple way is literally you've got your shape here. You've got the light coming this way. Generally, when the direction of light's coming, the shadow cuts perpendicular, not the shadow, but the light bending around. So it comes down, it's going to hit, but this is curved. So you could do something like this, and then as it gets towards the center, it might get a little thicker and then thinner on the edges like that. And just right there, that gives you a sense of shininess to it because you've got the main light coming in and hitting. And then right here, reflected light is kicking back in and it's a shiny surface. So you can just do it like this, nice and simple. However, the reflected light part generally isn't as bright as the part receiving the light. So you could always do a fade kind of like this. And then as it's getting closer to the reflected light, these lines would get further apart like that. And then you kind of get the sense that this is brighter, this is catching light. Of course, by doing this, when you're doing a figure that has lots of reflective surfaces on it, this could get very out of control, you could say, and just look kind of messy. That's why I kind of like doing it the way I originally showed, that didn't have all these basically reflected light lines, I guess you could say, coming in like this. So, but that's one way. You get the sense. You go, oh, look at that, it's lit. And you could even do stuff like this. Oh, look, here's, and you really get a sense of like this, there's this light up here and it's refracting and reflecting on it and stuff. But I like doing the whole keep it simple, stupid approach, which is what I had originally. Let me just So my circle template here. Get it back to that size so I can get the outline back. All right. So that's one way. And then, you know, I used a really thick brush, but if I was doing pencils, you can vary it up some as well, so it's not. Oh, what is going on? I'm using the wrong pencil tool. There we go. All right. So when it's hitting the edge like this, if you're doing full pencils for somebody else to ink, you want to give it a little bit of line weight to it. Like this. And then you get kind of this liquidy, flowing metal shine to it. Like that. That's one way. Another way to do it, and I'll turn this off. So the light is still coming from the same place up here, is you don't let it touch the outline of the actual sphere, and you stop it right before like that. So now what you're doing is you're giving more of a sense of dimensionality to this sphere with the reflected light, because you've got the reflected light down here in this area. And this is the core light. I think that's what it's called. It's been forever, guys. Like this. And then this comes down around the edge. And then you've got the reflected light bouncing back in this way. And you could pop a reflection in like that. You could bring this up a little higher too. Little bloopy things on that. And this is all about style now. And you see that has a nice shine to it as well. Gives you some dimensionality to the sphere or the ball. And then coloring wise, if somebody was coloring this, this would be more intense. You'd have the reflected light coming in this way, and then you'd have a different light hitting this edge right there. So that is another way you can do it as well. And then a third way, and I've done kind of all these different ways in drawing lights from up here, and it's kind of just getting kind of chunky and just blocking it in. It's not as clean. This gives it a different type of metal surface because you're not worried about being as precise and clean with it. So it's more of a brushed metal like that. down here, you just indicate it a little bit. And, I'm breaking up the lines more. Like this. And you get a different way. So there's like these 3 different ways you can indicate the metal shine on the shape. You can just really just have fun, play with it. Like that. And then if you wanted to, you could still go in and add and see these lines are curved. They're not straight and they're getting further apart. And then you look at it and you go, oh, wow, that has this shiny surface to it. So, and that's on that. But you're going, well, what about a figure? Okay, I'm getting there, guys. I'm getting there. First, let me just separate these so you can see. Doesn't matter the order. Here, and then this one. Like that. Let's reduce this a little bit so you see it. And you can see the 3 different ways that are possible. And there's a lot more than this. Every artist is different, and giving these 3 spheres that I did to a different inker, you might think they're so simple. Everybody's going to ink it the same. You would be wrong. Every inker, it's like a fingerprint, has their style, even with something like this. So there you go. There's 3 ways right there. And then on a figure, I took the liberty here. You can see this sketch I did, partially the Silver Surfer, and I lowered the opacity of it because on layers on top of it, what I want to do is I have, just so you can see, just an outline of it. So then with this below it, this is kind of like my underdrawing. So this would be on a light box, and then I can just go over top and render it. So going with like the first way, which was the real simple way, oops, I always do that. I would show the outline shape of the muscle group, and then might just be, and once again, we'll say the light's coming this way. So you got that. You've got his shoulder here. Now this comes down to, do I want to show the surfer is really cut? If I do, I'll treat each deltoid separately, like this. His bicep. Remember, light's coming this way. Like this. Go over here to this pectoral muscle. It's coming this way. And this is really simple. I'm not doing a lot at all. And I'm just breaking up the muscle groups individually. to basically get the point across. And when I take away the little underdrawing underneath, you're like, oh, you get a sense of shine here on the surfer, done really, really simply. There we go. You got his back muscle, his latissimus dorsi, dorsi, whatever. Rib cage, his little serrate muscles in there. So obliques. Let me just enlarge this some. His abs. You turn off that layer below, and that is you get the sense of, blow that up for you guys. You get the sense of metal or shine, if you will, and it's done really simply, not a lot of effort. And it's just like that first round ball where I did it like that. Light's coming this way. Like that. Boom. Nice and simple. Not that difficult. Gets the point across. Looks cool, and you just keep going through the different forms of his figure. Like that. And yes, you do need to know some of the anatomy and stuff, but it's part of the learning process. So lights this way. Actually, that one I don't like. That's there. Like that. And you just get this nice kind of goopiness in a way to it. And then if you want, you go back in with your pencil and you can vary. That is way too small. Let's see. Vary the line weight some, and then you can add more kind of detail to it by adding some double lines here like this. And you can see that gives it just a little bit more of that shine that we're going for. This is a little highlight on his leg there. And you can add that type of stuff throughout. That. And here we go. So you get the idea. Okay, so that's doing it this way. You can also go on with the way we did the second one. Look at this. See how prepared I am? Another outline ready to go. Turn on anatomy underneath. And then the second one was the one where we showed the reflected light. Basically, as this is, we did it where it didn't, the shine part, light's coming this way still, didn't touch the edge. Like that. Just take that out. So for this is basically that's the edge of his chest. So you see I'm kicking this little bit of light on the edge of this now. Yeah. Little these little ovals indicate light kind of bouncing in there. Same thing on this one. And you can see he's looking even a little shinier than the previous one I did. And when I ink my own work, I just indicate real rough where the shines are for the rendering, because I can do all this cool stuff when I'm inking the piece. Shoulder. Separating the deltoids like I did on the first one. And then when you work with your colorist, you just want to make sure that they color the highlights properly and the reflected light areas properly as well. Remember, light's coming this way, down. And then here, do that on the outline to show that this edge right here has some reflected light coming in right there. Because remember, in the ball, you could carry this around more up here if you want as well. So it holds true for the outline here. And once you do this enough, you kind of will establish your own way of doing rendering. And the cool thing is, with these 3 different ways, you can do it on different, you can pick a different way for different characters. So for the Silver Surfer, who's really shiny, if you want to go that route, you might go this way. But then for another character like Colossus, whose arms are like more brushed metal, you might go with the simpler way in the previous example here, you know, or the third example I'll show would probably even work better for Colossus. I mean, it's just kind of fun now. I'm just kind of playing around here. Because I know the anatomy shapes and stuff and how I want to do this rendering here that I'm showing you guys. And when you're doing this, if you're doing it digitally, you can work in layers. And if you're using real paper and stuff, use tracing paper to go over top of what you're doing with your figure stuff. So if you make a mistake, it's easy to fix. And when you turn off the underdrawing below, you know, you get something like that, which is, you know, even more, has more of a shine, more of a sheen to it, if you will. Right? So I did this here because all this right here can have kind of a reflected light color bounced into it. And then you've got the highlight, which is here, and then reflected light, which is here. And you just keep going. You can see, like, wow, this guy's like, woof, he's blinding. If this dude was in the sun, I would need sunglasses to look at him. And then you get the sense of nice shines there. And then let me just erase that, make it cleaner. Remember, this is the outline of the abs. Little bit of highlight catching on the obliques there. Remember, you have to have, you know, the more you know about the anatomy, the more this will really work for you. That you turn, let's turn that off, and there you go. So that's kind of the second way I showed of doing it. Right here, I'll do a little bit on his head since I don't want to ignore that. showing his nose. Let's get this black out from underneath his lip. And then, you know, you can really go crazy with it if you want as well, and break up the forms of the face to show the reflective surfaces and stuff. So there's the second way. And then the third way, which could work good for a Colossus type, is where it's more blunt and you're just kind of sketching it in. See if I can get this to work well, because I'm using with the size brush I'm using, it might be too thick. Let's see. And this gives it a rougher look, not as polished. And that's kind of a way to do it too. And you can get even simpler here. John Buscema, when he did the Silver Surfer, the way he did the metal was pretty simple. It was just kind of dealing with the big shapes and not getting too lost in the weeds with a lot of that the rendering, like I did on the other example. And you can always go in with your eraser, make that a lot smaller. Maybe not that much smaller. And carve out some shapes and stuff. This is one that works real good if I was inking with a brush. Actually, you know what? Let me try that real quick. Let me see. I'm going to try using my brush tools. Okay, so you guys can see that. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. I'm going to get rid of all this stuff I did, but I duplicated the layer so it'll still be there in the end. Because sometimes when I was starting out, I would do on tracing paper what I suggested, which is take a brush. Get these outlines back in here. Take a brush on tracing paper and slap in the black areas. And I just got to see what size brush this is I just did. Ooh, that's pretty large. What is... Oh no, I don't like that. All right, I'll go back to this one. Make it a little smaller. That's not bad. All right. So, right layer, yep. So John Buscema sometimes would keep it really simple. And just indicate the rendering very simply. And it could be because of time constraints, you know, back then. You know, but doing stuff like this is another way. You could render the metal as well, and then you don't have to obviously show every ab muscle. I just like to because I like drawing anatomy. If light's coming down this way, his rib cage might be casting those upper abs in a type of shadow, and you could even blacken them in like that. So it really just depends on what type of style you know works well for you and what you want to do. You know, even if you look at this video and go back and reference it and reference the different ways I showed to indicate shines and such on your own work, eventually after time you'll notice it's more of your styles coming about in it. And then when you turn off that underneath, you can see, you know, this is just another way to show reflective surfaces, and each one works. And then, you know, if this was Colossus, for instance, you'd probably see a little more anatomy on him because he's a big dude. But Colossus has those bands that go around his arms like this. And then one cool thing to do when you're inking is with whiteout. Come on, there we go. With whiteout, why is this not? This eraser's acting weird. On the bottom side of one of the lines that cuts across the form, you do a thin little white. And I'll show you why in a second. But you can see just by doing that, blow this up. that looks even, gives it more of a shine. And the reason I'm doing that is because each of these segments, oops, let me make this smaller. And his arm is basically, so you've got your cylinder like this, right? Which is his arm. And then you've got these contour lines that go around. Well, when you blow up on it, if this was really big, this is how I interpret it. I want to do a new layer so I can really show it better. Let me lower the opacity on this one. Oops, I did a duplicate layer. I didn't want to do a duplicate layer. I want to do a new layer. There we go. Now lower the opacity. And I'll make this a little smaller too. So it basically goes like this. No, that's not small enough. That should be, oops, that's why. I'm a dummy. Okay, here we go. So it goes like this and then around here. So if you can see what I'm doing to this outline, these contour lines are actually little segments is how I view them, right? So when I turn off the layer below, you can see now how it cuts in, and how it cuts in, that means that there's this slight edge right here, kind of like here, you can see it, right? Like that. So then when I do the metal rendering over top, oh, that's way too big. Come on. It's saved. So, okay. So back to it. So here, if I do the metal, right, and we'll just do it simple like this, you can see, I'll even do it like this at the bottom. Why not? Like that. This edge right here, I don't go all the way up to it because it has this this other facing plane to it. So that's why I do the white out. Like this on those segments. And then when it's on somebody like Colossus, I don't draw that edge like I showed you here. And then you look at it and you go, oh, wow, that's cool. That's segmented, right? But unless you're drawing like Colossus's arm really, really, really close to the camera, it's fine just to draw this edge here smooth. Oops. Because you get the same feeling from it by cutting in this white out like that. So there you go. I hope this short video, shortish, I mean, guys, I came in under an hour, helped you guys out. So we've got to review, we've got the 3 spheres that I started with first, showing basically a simple style, a more complex, and then a more complex style of rendering. And then we've got the figure examples, which I'll pull over next to each other. Actually, we'll leave that one there. This one pull over like this. And then I think it's this one. Nope. Didn't want to move that. Come here, you. We'll pull over this way. Get down here so you can see it. Like that. We'll jack the opacity up, and then I'll get rid of this. And then you can kind of see the three different ways that I was talking about for, kind of a simple introductory way to render shiny surfaces. So I hope this helps. As always, like, subscribe, and share if you like what you see. And I will have more videos coming at you. And of course, I need to do my due diligence here and talk about Lilith Infernal Conflict, my new campaign on Indiegogo. Hang around, watch the trailer. You'll love it if you're a fan of, what would we say, high tea fantasy adventure along the lines of Game of Thrones and Conan. If you've read Kordrath the Awakening, Kordrath the Reckoning, we are expanding the world of Kordrath with Lilith Infernal Conflict. It's a backstory on her. Check out the trailer. And guys, I'll see you next time with another video. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye-bye, everybody.